Inner peace is a hidden treasure, and often, we get distracted by battles that lead nowhere. Have you ever stopped to think how life can be transformed if we decide to set aside useless arguments? What's truly worthwhile? The adrenaline of an argument or the serenity of a calm spirit? Imagine for a moment, you're in the middle of a verbal storm and suddenly you choose silence. What happens? You feel light, as if you've released a weight you didn't even know you were carrying. These small, often invisible choices shape our daily lives. And when we opt for peace, we open doors to wisdom. Have you noticed how, by letting go of the need to always be right, life becomes more fluid? The Stoics teach us that true strength isn't in winning an argument, but in maintaining calm in the face of chaos. In every moment, in every interaction, we have the chance to decide, is it worth arguing or is it better to preserve our peace? Think about it. The choice is yours. If you're looking for more emotional balance, clarity in your decisions, and want to learn how to better handle life, this content is for you. So, go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, because with each video you'll strengthen yourself from within and see life with more wisdom. The importance of inner peace for mental health. Have you ever stopped to think about how inner peace can directly influence our mental health? It's curious, but the way we handle emotions and everyday situations can be the watershed between a balanced life and a life full of stress and anxiety. The feeling of inner peace isn't just about being calm, but about having a mental state that allows us to face challenges without letting them get us down. When we cultivate inner peace, we are, in fact, creating a safe space within ourselves. This means that even when life presents us with challenges, we can maintain our sanity and clarity. It's like having an anchor in the midst of a storm. This mental stability not only protects us but also allows us to make wiser and more thoughtful decisions. Mental health is a reflection of our emotions and thoughts. If we are constantly in a state of internal agitation, this is reflected in our physical and emotional health. Studies show that people who can maintain a state of inner peace are less likely to develop problems like depression and anxiety. Therefore, investing in your inner peace is an investment in your mental health. The practice of meditation, reflection, and even the simple appreciation of a moment of tranquility are ways to promote this inner peace. When we allow ourselves moments of silence and introspection, we are nourishing our minds and, consequently, our health. Inner peace is a state that, when cultivated, can transform not only our lives but also the lives of those around us. Finally, it's important to remember that inner peace is not a permanent state. It requires constant care and attention. Just as a garden needs to be watered and cared for, our inner peace needs daily practices so that we can enjoy a healthier and more balanced life. After all, the peace we cultivate within us can be a beacon for those who surround us. How to avoid unnecessary arguments in daily life. Avoiding unnecessary arguments is an art that many of us are still learning to master. In a world so full of opinions and ideas, it's easy to get carried away by debates that lead nowhere. I myself have found myself in situations where a simple conversation turned into a heated argument, and in the end, I realized there was much more to lose than to gain. The first strategy one learned was the importance of choosing your battles. Not all opinions need to be debated. Sometimes it's wiser to simply let it go. This doesn't mean you should ignore what's important, but rather that you should assess whether the effort is worth it. Ask yourself, does this argument really matter? Often the answer is no. Another valuable tip is active listening. When we're in a conversation and notice the other person is about to enter argumentative territory, a good technique is to listen attentively to what the other person is saying. This not only shows respect but can also help de-escalate the situation. When the other party feels heard, the chances of a conflict escalating decrease dramatically. Furthermore, it's essential to stay calm. When the temperature of the conversation starts to rise, the tendency is for emotions to take over. I've learned that if I can maintain a calm tone of voice and an open posture, the chances of derailing the conversation into unnecessary arguments diminish. Dealing with emotions rationally is a big step towards avoiding unproductive debates. Lastly, don't forget that a little humor can help defuse tense situations. Sometimes, a light joke or a fun comment can change the direction of a conversation. Of course, this must be done with care and respect. But when used well, humor is a powerful tool for avoiding unnecessary arguments and maintaining healthy relationships. Strategies to stay calm in conflict situations. Staying calm in conflict situations is a skill that, in my experience, can be developed and improved over time. When we face a conflicting situation, the first reaction is usually to defend ourselves or attack. However, I've learned that pausing and breathing can make all the difference. Taking a deep breath and giving yourself a moment to reflect before reacting is a fundamental step to maintaining calm. Another strategy I've found effective is visualization. Before entering a potentially conflicting situation, I try to visualize the conversation. I imagine how I would like it to unfold and how I can intervene constructively. This not only prepares me mentally but also helps me stay focused on a peaceful resolution. The practice of empathy is a crucial element for calmness in tense moments. When we can put ourselves in the other person's shoes, we often realize that the situation isn't as serious as it seems. This allows us to respond in a way that doesn't exacerbate the conflict. Empathy helps us see the motivations and emotions behind the words, facilitating a more productive dialogue. Additionally, establishing clear boundaries about what is acceptable and what is not in an argument can help maintain calm. When we know the lines we shouldn't cross, it becomes easier to maintain composure and prevent the situation from getting out of control. This requires clear communication and often the ability to say no respectfully. Finally, remember that in a conflict, it's important to focus on the solution, not the dispute. This means that instead of concentrating on who is right or wrong, we should direct our energies towards finding a middle ground or a solution that benefits everyone. This change in perspective can be the key to staying calm and transforming a conflict into an opportunity for growth. The impact of arguments on the quality of personal relationships. Arguments can have a profound impact on the quality of our personal relationships. Sometimes, a small disagreement can escalate and turn into a major problem, affecting not only the relationship between the parties involved but also the environment around us. I am a strong advocate for the idea that the quality of our daily interactions shapes the health of our deeper relationships. One aspect I've learned over the years is that unresolved arguments tend to create a tense atmosphere. Even if the people involved try to act normally, the negative energy of an unresolved argument can linger in the air, creating discomfort. This is especially true in family and friendship relationships, where intimacy is greater and emotions are more raw. Furthermore, frequent arguments can lead to emotional exhaustion. When we are constantly in conflict, it can cause stress and anxiety, which in turn affect our mental and physical health. In the long run, this can result in a drift between people, where interactions become more superficial and filled with resentment. On the other hand, it's important to note that we don't need to avoid arguments at all costs. Healthy arguments can actually strengthen relationships. When conducted respectfully and constructively, they can help resolve misunderstandings, promote personal growth, and create a safe space for expressing feelings and opinions. The secret lies in how we approach these discussions. Finally, the way we handle arguments can become a reflection of our own personal growth. Learning to argue healthily and reconnect after disagreements can strengthen bonds with others. By cultivating the ability to resolve conflicts constructively, we are, in fact, investing in the quality of our personal relationships and creating an environment where everyone feels valued and heard. Nonviolent communication techniques to resolve disagreements. Nonviolent communication, NVC, is an approach that has helped me immensely in dealing with disagreements. Created by psychologist Marshall Rosenberg, NVC is based on the idea that communication should be a tool to connect people, not to create more strife. I've learned that by adopting this approach, we can transform potentially conflicting conversations into constructive dialogues. One of the main techniques of NVC is the clear expression of feelings and needs. Often, during an argument, we get lost in accusations and criticisms. What I've learned is that instead of pointing fingers, we should focus on saying how we feel and what we really need. For example, instead of saying, "You never listen to me," one could rephrase it as, "I feel ignored when I'm not heard." This shift in focus reduces the other person's defensiveness. Another powerful technique is active listening. This means not just hearing the words but really trying to understand what the other person is feeling. By practicing active listening, we demonstrate empathy and respect. This can create a space where both parties feel safe to express their concerns and feelings without fear of judgment. Furthermore, NVC emphasizes the importance of making clear requests. It's not about demanding, but about requesting in a way that the other person feels comfortable responding. For example, instead of saying, "You need to stop doing that," one could say, "Could you consider not doing that when we're together?" This gentler approach can encourage collaboration and resolution. Finally, whenever possible, the original text cuts off here. The difference between being assertive and being confrontational. Assertiveness is a skill that, when used well, can completely change the dynamic of a conversation. When I talk about being assertive, I mean the ability to express your opinions and feelings clearly and directly, while also respecting the other person's point of view. This is very different from being confrontational, which usually involves aggression, disrespect, or a need to dominate the conversation. I've learned that by being assertive, I can defend my point of view without creating a hostile environment. This is a fundamental difference that often gets lost in heated discussions. Once, in a work meeting, I saw a colleague stand up and start criticizing another's idea harshly. The atmosphere became heavy, and what should have been a constructive debate turned into a battlefield. I realized that the way he expressed himself not only disrespected his colleague but also harmed the group's collaboration. If he had been more assertive, he might have been able to present his objections without causing so much tension. Being confrontational can create a vicious cycle of defensive reactions. When someone attacks, it's common for the other person to react defensively, and this can quickly escalate into a pointless argument. Assertiveness, on the other hand, when practiced with empathy and consideration, can open doors for real dialogue. It's about finding a middle ground where everyone feels heard and respected. If I can achieve this in a conversation, I feel like I'm contributing to a healthier environment. Furthermore, assertiveness also relates to inner peace. When I am able to express myself clearly without fear of retaliation or being misunderstood, I feel an inner lightness. This contrasts sharply with the feeling of frustration that comes with unnecessary conflicts. Assertiveness helps me maintain calm and clarity, even when emotions are running high. It's a skill worth cultivating to maintain not only mental health but also healthier relationships. Therefore, the difference between being assertive and confrontational is essential to my daily life. I've learned that by communicating assertively, I can not only express what I think but also create a space where the other person feels safe to do the same. This transforms potentially conflicting conversations into opportunities for growth and mutual understanding. The relationship between inner peace and productivity at work. The connection between inner peace and productivity is something I started to notice in my own professional life. When I'm in a state of calm and mental clarity, my ability to focus and be efficient increases significantly. On stressful days, when my mind is agitated and full of worries, it's easy to get lost in tasks and not perform as I should. Inner peace provides a solid foundation upon which I can build my work, allowing me to concentrate on tasks without being distracted by personal problems or external tensions. Recently, on an important project, I realized that stress was affecting my performance. I was so caught up in minor disputes and deadline pressures that I lost sight of the final goal. It was only when I took some time to meditate and re-establish my inner peace that I was able to see things more clearly. From then on, I returned to work with a renewed perspective, which not only improved my productivity but also my interaction with colleagues. Inner peace is also synonymous with resilience. When I face challenges, a calm mind allows me to seek solutions instead of getting carried away by despair. This not only improves my problem-solving ability but also inspires those around me. A work environment where people are calm and centered tends to be more productive, as everyone feels more comfortable expressing their ideas and collaborating. Moreover, inner peace helps me prioritize tasks better. When I'm calm, I can assess what is truly important and what can be set aside. This means I don't waste energy on things that don't bring significant results. Instead, I focus on what really matters, and this clarity is fundamental to maintaining high productivity. Therefore, the relationship between inner peace and productivity is undeniable. I've learned that cultivating peace in my life is not only beneficial for my well-being but also essential for my performance at work. Serenity provides me with a mental space to be more creative, more efficient, and ultimately, more successful in what I do. The role of empathy in conflict resolution. Empathy is a powerful tool that can transform the way we handle conflicts. When I can put myself in the other person's shoes, it's easier to understand their motivations and concerns. This not only facilitates communication but also helps create an environment where people feel valued and understood. I remember a situation where a colleague and I had disagreements on the same project. Instead of simply defending my point of view, I decided to listen to what he had to say. In doing so, I realized that his fears and insecurities were valid and that, together, we could find a solution that met both our needs. Empathy also helps me de-escalate potentially conflicting situations. When someone is angry or unhappy, if I respond with understanding and compassion, the tension is likely to decrease. I've seen this happen in meetings where, instead of engaging in a heated argument, a simple gesture of empathy could calm things down. When people realize they are being heard, it changes the dynamic of the conversation and opens space for more constructive dialogue. Furthermore, empathy allows me to see the situation from a broader perspective. Often, in a conflict, we are so focused on defending our own opinions that we forget the other party also has their reasons. When I can understand this, it becomes easier to find a middle ground. This can be especially useful in work environments where collaboration is crucial. Empathy not only improves communication but also strengthens relationships. creating a culture of respect and understanding. An interesting aspect of empathy is that it can be cultivated. I started practicing active listening, asking questions, and really striving to understand the other person's point of view. This practice not only helped me resolve conflicts but also to build stronger and more meaningful relationships. Empathy is an investment that, in the long run, yields returns in the form of harmony and collaboration. Thus, the role of empathy in conflict resolution is indispensable. It not only transforms how we deal with disagreements but also strengthens personal and professional relationships. When we are empathetic, we create a space where peace can thrive, and that makes all the difference in our daily interactions. How to establish healthy boundaries in difficult conversations. Establishing healthy boundaries is a vital skill in difficult conversations, and I learned this the hard way. Many times, I found myself in situations where discussions became intense, and I realized that if I had set clear boundaries from the beginning, the situation could have been much easier to manage. A boundary can be as simple as saying, "We need to approach this calmly," or, "I'm not comfortable with this tone of conversation." These boundaries help create a safe space for everyone to express themselves without fear of being attacked. Once, during a heated argument with a friend, I realized we were straying from the main topic and starting to attack each other personally. It was at that moment I decided to establish a boundary. I asked that we focus on the problem instead of resorting to insults. This simple change in attitude not only calmed the situation but also allowed us to resolve the issue more productively. I learned that by setting boundaries, I am protecting not only myself but also the relationship I have with the other person. Furthermore, boundaries help define clear expectations. When we know how far we can go in a discussion, it gives us the necessary security to express ourselves. Establishing boundaries doesn't mean being inflexible, but rather creating a space where opinions can be exchanged respectfully and constructively. This is especially important in work environments where collaboration is fundamental. If everyone knows it's possible to discuss ideas without fear of retaliation, the environment becomes much healthier. Another strategy I've used is the timeout technique. In situations where emotions are running high, I suggest a pause, allowing everyone to breathe and reflect before continuing the conversation. This pause is vital to prevent tempers from flaring further. Upon returning to the conversation calmer, it's much easier to establish boundaries and discuss issues productively. Therefore, establishing healthy boundaries in difficult conversations is essential for maintaining peace and understanding. I've learned that by doing so, I not only protect my well-being but also contribute to a more respectful and collaborative environment. Boundaries, when well defined, allow everyone to feel safe to express themselves and thus transform conflicts into opportunities for growth. The value of silence and active listening in discussions. Have you ever stopped to think about the power of silence? That moment of pause when everything seems suspended can be more valuable than we imagine. In discussions, we often feel the need to fill every space with words, as if they were the only way to make ourselves heard. But, in reality, silence can be a powerful ally. When we choose to be quiet, we give the other person a chance to express their point of view, and this can transform the dynamic of the conversation. Active listening becomes the center of the interaction, allowing the other person to feel valued and understood. Active listening is more than just hearing. It's paying attention to what is being said, observing body language, and even perceiving the emotions behind the words. When we practice active listening, we are creating a safe space for the person to feel comfortable opening up and sharing their thoughts. This is especially important in moments of conflict, where emotions can be running high. By giving genuine attention to what the other person says, we not only avoid misunderstandings but also show respect and empathy, essential elements for building healthy relationships. It's interesting to note how silence can help regulate our own emotions. When I find myself in a heated discussion, I often feel the temptation to respond with the same intensity. However, by opting for silence, I can reflect on what was said and how I truly feel about it. This space for reflection helps me formulate more thoughtful and less reactive responses. Thus, silence is not a sign of weakness, but rather a demonstration of self-control and emotional maturity. On the other hand, active listening can also be a powerful tool for resolving misunderstandings. Often what we are really saying is distorted by the way we are feeling. When we are nervous, we might interpret the other person's words negatively. With active listening, we allow ourselves to truly understand what the other person is trying to communicate, and this can open the door to a more constructive dialogue. Thus, we cultivate an environment where peace can flourish, even amidst disagreements. Finally, the value of silence and active listening in discussions goes far beyond mere communication. It's about building a space where dialogue is respectful and productive. When we practice these skills, we not only improve our own relationships but also contribute to a more harmonious environment around us. Silence becomes a sign of respect and active listening, a bridge to mutual understanding. Examples of situations where peace should be prioritized. Sometimes, life presents us with challenges that test our ability to maintain peace. A clear example is that moment when a coworker makes an unexpected criticism. The first reaction might be defensiveness or even attack, but it's in these moments that we must remember the importance of prioritizing peace. Choosing to respond calmly instead of reacting impulsively can not only avoid unnecessary conflict but also strengthen mutual respect in the workplace. Another scenario that well illustrates this need is family discussions. Imagine a dinner where opinions on politics or religion begin to heat up. The temptation to enter a fervent debate is strong, but often, it's wiser to opt for maintaining peace. This doesn't mean we need to give up our beliefs, but we can choose to express them respectfully, preventing the evening from turning into a battlefield. Prioritizing peace in these situations is an exercise in wisdom and self-control. In romantic relationships, pacification is equally crucial. Every couple faces disagreements, but how we handle them can determine the health of the relationship. Intense moments like when a partner forgets an important commitment, anger can arise quickly. However, by prioritizing peace, we can choose to dialogue constructively, instead of letting frustration dominate the conversation. This not only helps resolve the problem but also reinforces the emotional connection between partners. Another situation worth highlighting is the use of social media. In times of polarization, it's easy to get carried away by heated discussions online. However, prioritizing peace in digital environments can be even more important than in face-to-face discussions. Instead of engaging in fierce debates, we can choose to share our thoughts reflectively and respectfully, or even ignore provocations. This choice not only preserves our own inner peace but also contributes to a less hostile online environment. Lastly, peace should be prioritized in times of collective crisis, such as during a pandemic or a situation of political instability. In these times, anxiety and fear can lead people to become more reactive. However, by choosing calm and understanding, we can be a source of support for others, helping to create an environment of solidarity and comprehension. These moments are opportunities to exercise our ability to maintain peace, not just for ourselves but for the community around us. The effect of social media on discussions and inner peace. If there's one thing social media does, it's amplify our voices, but it also amplifies the cacophony of opinions and discussions. While they connect us, they can also be fertile ground for conflict. It's almost as if we're always on the verge of an argument, ready to defend our opinions at all costs. Often this can be detrimental to our inner peace. Constant exposure to heated debates and negativity can leave us anxious and stressed, affecting our mental health. One of the most challenging aspects of social media is the ease with which interactions can become dehumanizing. Behind a screen, people often feel more comfortable expressing opinions aggressively, without considering the impact their words might have on others. This can create a vicious cycle of reactivity, where a simple post can trigger a series of hostile responses. Maintaining inner peace in such an environment requires constant awareness of how we are reacting to these interactions, and often the best response is simply to step away. Furthermore, the effect of social media on our inner peace also manifests in constant comparison with others. The need to always be connected can lead us to feel inadequate or dissatisfied with our own lives. This can generate feelings of anxiety and depression, which in turn make it harder to maintain inner peace. Therefore, it's essential to establish healthy boundaries regarding the time we spend online and the nature of the content we consume. By choosing to follow profiles that promote positivity and self-acceptance, we can create a virtual environment that contributes to our inner peace. On the other hand, social media can also be a tool for cultivating peace. They allow us to connect with people who share similar values and who can offer support during difficult times. Online support groups, meditation communities, and spaces for constructive discussion can be found on digital platforms. By surrounding ourselves with good influences, we can transform our use of social media into an experience that enriches our lives and helps us maintain inner peace. In short, social media plays a complex role in our lives. They can both undermine our inner peace and serve as a resource for cultivating it. The key lies in how we choose to interact with this digital world. By becoming more aware of our interactions, we can learn to navigate this space in a way that favors our mental health and well-being. The connection between self-knowledge and the ability to avoid conflicts. Self-knowledge is a powerful tool when it comes to avoiding conflicts. When we know ourselves, our emotions, and our triggers, we become more capable of navigating tense situations with grace and assertiveness. Awareness of how we react in different circumstances allows us to make wiser choices, instead of acting impulsively. For me, this has been a real game changer in my life. When I realize a situation is becoming potentially confrontational, I can pause and reflect on my emotions before responding. An important aspect of self-knowledge is understanding our beliefs and values. When we know what is truly important to us, we can articulate our points of view more clearly and respectfully. This doesn't mean we won't have disagreements, but it helps us approach them in a way that prioritizes peace. By expressing our opinions based on a solid understanding of what we stand for, we can create a space for constructive dialogue, rather than confrontation. Furthermore, self-knowledge helps us recognize our limits. Knowing how far we can go in a conversation and when it's time to step back is fundamental to maintaining peace. Often, we enter discussions without realizing we are crossing a personal boundary, which can lead to frustration and resentment. By being aware of our limits, we can withdraw from situations that seem to be becoming harmful, thus preserving our inner peace. So, how about we reflect a bit on all of this? Imagine that, throughout your day, you encounter situations that can get on your nerves. A poorly chosen word, an unexpected criticism. It's easy to let that shake our inner peace, isn't it? But the great insight of Stoicism is precisely this: maintaining control over our reactions. Think about it, your peace is a precious asset. It's worth more than any heated argument, more than any bruised ego. When you choose not to get involved in unnecessary conflicts, you're investing in your mental and emotional health. How about doing an exercise now? Imagine yourself facing a situation that usually irritates you. How can you react in a way that preserves your serenity? Remember, life is short, and every moment is an opportunity to practice this wisdom. So, the next time someone tries to get on your nerves, ask yourself, is it worth it? And if the answer is no, focus on your peace. After all, it's priceless. Shall we cultivate this stoic mindset together and transform our daily lives? Are you ready for this change?